Talk to the big
Dino.
chief.
How are you?
Very good. You?
Sorry, I'm still eating breakfast.
No, that's not. I'm still eating breakfast. That's no problem. 6 o'clock in the morning. My God. How are you? Are you okay?
Much better lately. Yesterday, I just couldn't talk. Today, I'm coughing less. Still breathing.
Okay. You sound clear.
Yeah, I'm switching machines. My video camera, my good one, I've lost. So I'm actually using my laptop camera right now. I'm hoping I can find it again.
You have a good mic?
No, this is using the laptop microphone as well.
Right, right.
So if you want, I can go get the good mic. Actually, I have that one. You want me to plug that one in?
Sure. I get the glass.
Right? Okay.
Huh?
See, this is my microphone, Dino. Oh, you can't see it.
Yeah.
Testing. Testing my blue snowball microphone. Testing. It just got plugged in. Okay, sounds okay.
Okay. I'm here.
And
And,
see, this is my fancy blue snowball microphone.
oh, wow. You see my one? My mic? Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, I can bring the camera to it. Yeah, this?
Yeah, that's actually a much higher quality one. That's like really expensive, right?
Yeah, it was some kind of top model thing.
There's Frodo.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello.
Hey, are you again someplace where you cannot video?
Just a bit dark.
Okay, here's what. Since we skipped the day yesterday, we can have a Sam day or a Dino day. And if it's Dino day, then I would propose that we talk about what I wrote in the chat, and let me just frame it to have it on the table so that we can ultimately look at it. And the story is that that there is this whole strategy, which I think is very natural, but it belongs to a much higher elevation on the mountain than where we normally talk and see things. So I have a feeling that we find ourselves at the moment, strategically speaking, in different elevations on the mountain. And so I would very much like us to have eventually a really good conversation about this, right? And the framing is the lighthouse or the situation with the ISSS and things. But the theme is much bigger. It's really the whole strategy. And so the point is that I see a strategy that can make all our efforts, including continuing Doug's mission, infinitely easier. It's a little bit audacious strategy as strategies go, but I think it's the reasonable one. I really believe that. And so that's basically what I want us to discuss eventually. But with this, let me pull back and say, Sam, if you want to talk about, do the Sam session today instead of yesterday, it's perfectly fine.
No, I do want to express a concern, and that is the most regular person lately on the Wednesday collaborology calls, other than me, has been Frode. But Frode has already self-declared that he's, interested, but not a key crucial person. But I've not seen you, Dino, or Alexander on the Wednesday collaborology calls. So that to me says there's possibly a lack of interest there.
No. I have to say that I'm committed to Wednesday collaborology. So that means that I am by default essentially there. It's just that yesterday they scheduled this meeting with this other group and you were sick. So we skipped that one.
Well, is that a regular session time? Because I see that.
No. It was somehow arranged. I don't know.
Okay. Then I know that there are other reasons why I think in the last few weeks that's not been very regular. But let me then take that as just a temporary anomaly. And let's just say Wednesdays are still collaborology days. Let's do it again, next Wednesday, because I do have an outline of things. I do have some diagrams I'd like to share, especially with some axiomatic principles I'd like to, present and discuss around collaborology.
Perfecto.
And I know that you're gathering content and feedback, with a larger community. So I am really trying to package this in such a way that can be shared. And so I would like some feedback on that. And so the lack of momentum around it is a small concern for me.
It's not a lack of interest on my part. I mean, collaborology is in the focus of interest, and it will be more and more. I mean, remember the course in Dubrovnik. We are building. Exactly we are bringing quite some forces there. You saw I shared the flyer, so you see what is happening.
Right. I don't yet know all the people that are involved, but I'm looking forward.
All the people that are involved. We'll probably have some surprises also in the last moment. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, I'm just going to share the flyer, and the flyer is now on the website also.
Well, then why don't we do this? Since you have a community that is interested in collaborology, why don't you invite them to the Wednesday calls? Because right now, I'm not seeing a lot of Amigos-specific participation other than Frode. So that's why I'd say let's open it up. Let's see if those people want to engage even now before we get to Dubrovnik.
That's great. Let's try that.
Okay. So let's say next Wednesday, let's try and relaunch the collaborology series. I'm going to have some outlines, some prepared materials, and some questions and some topics for discussion. So hopefully let's get that going. And then that way Thursdays can still remain your Polyscopy/Lighthouse Day. Okay,
I have actually, look, the way this community is, it's a Global Education Futures Forum, but it's becoming, possibly it will be called Protopia Labs or something or other. It's all about collaborology, really. So may I propose to these people that some of them join us, and then we have kind of a larger group, larger audience.
That's what I'm saying. Let's bring them to Wednesday.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do exactly that. This is great. I'll do a little bit of advertising on that channel and on the Amigos channel and all other channels.
I mean, send the announcement, and then I'll follow up the announcement with some of the links to some of the places I've already got some work in progress materials, and use that to try and stimulate the participation.
Excellent, perfect.
Again, apologize for eating breakfast.
No problem. Are you saying that we do the Dino agenda today then?
Yeah, since that is Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Then I will open by giving you the word to then open properly, you meaning you 7 through them. Can we try to have a good dialogue, as Frode and I had, about collaborology, polyscopy, interaction design? We can have a good dialogue about this theme and see what it is that really I so much want to invite you to see. The ball is in your field now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're here, I think.
Right. So I'm just giving you the lead so that they don't end up monologuing. let's unpack this.
Well, let me ask this. You guys had a good conversation. I haven't yet listened to that conversation. Is there a 30-second summary of it that would actually place a context?
No, this is not about this. It's about another theme. So we can talk about polyscopy ID separately. Although ultimately it belongs to this same theme, right? It's the big basic strategy. It's the tsunami strategy. So all these pieces belong to the tsunami strategy essentially. And I realize the tsunami strategy is still, even in our group, a little bit counterintuitive. It's not quite obvious what exactly it is. So this is what I would like us to basically hold this strategy until we see it together, right? And then a lot of things will fall into place, I feel, if you can do that. So that means staying a little bit in the concrete and abstract, right? So the concrete thing is this whole development with ISSS and the lighthouse in particular, but it's the sequence, Wiener's paradox, the lighthouse, and then all the build-up that is happening now, which is really quite big for Colorado, right? So that as concrete, reflecting the tsunami, right? As some of the moving water in the tsunami. So what we want to do is basically see the tsunami, right? Not get hooked on any kind of detail. Of course, we see it through the details because it's difficult to see. We have to see the water moving, but exactly the big movement of the water, what it is. I have been reflecting about this and feeling also that it's crucial for us, right? Because that's the strategy that actually moves me. That's what motivates me, and it's been going on for quite a while. And I realize it's not easy to see, right?
So just so I can get up to speed, what is the tsunami that you're referring to?
That's exactly what I want us to see together. So that will be the end result of this conversation if we succeed, right? I'm still framing it, right, to look in the right direction. It's about a strategy that can both further Doug's agenda significantly and bring lots of these things that we have been talking about, basically energize them, give them a place in the world, give them momentum, right?
So elements of the tsunami, I mean, that implies a big wave, it implies, lots of mass.
Right.
It involves a crash that's about to happen soon. What is the tsunami here?
Well, you can call it a paradigmatic insight from which paradigmatic changes naturally come. And then all these things we have been talking about have a place in the world, right? They become not strange things, they become the natural thing. They become, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? So instead of talking maybe on this level of generality, if we can go back to the lighthouse as an exemplar, deal with that for a little while, and then go back and with the lighthouse illuminate the tsunami. I think you're muted. I don't hear you. Are you muted?
Okay, sorry. For me, Dino, it's me trying to wonder when you introduce a term like lighthouse or like tsunami. I know it means something to you, and I know it's indicative of something that's supposed to mean something to me and Frode and others. And I have to figure out, exactly what meaning we're supposed to extract and how we're supposed to map that meaning onto what's happening, so that we're not missing what you're saying. And that's why these terms, when they're new, rather than just letting them go, I have to figure out, okay, so what is the intended semantics behind it that you want us to retain?
Precisely, okay. So the lighthouse is, so the tsunami is a kind of a paradigmatic shift, right? And my point here is that instead of working on this project and that project and so on and trying to fit them into the existing order of things, what we're doing is essentially moving with the paradigm, right? And the tsunami is metaphorically the paradigm. So it's a big way of change. And if we can position ourselves on the big way of change and understand that dynamic, then that gives tremendous energy to whatever we're doing. That's basically the image. That's the metaphor, right? And I'm not expecting that you understand this metaphor at this point. It's just a framing, because if we have to look at the concrete to see the abstract. The abstract is just too abstract before you look at anything concrete.
Okay.
So,
a paradigm shift to me implies that it's not just within one brain, right? There's got to be a mass of brain.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
This new model before the paradigm actually takes hold.
Absolutely.
So that implies some momentum. And so you see momentum, and I'm trying to figure out where is that momentum?
Now the momentum is happening out there, but let's focus on what we are doing. Before the paradigm shift, it's not like what everybody's doing, right? Some people are doing it. So let's concern ourselves with what we are doing and see that it's again, you know, to use the third metaphor. I'm sorry for so many metaphors. The worm in a big tree trunk making holes. At a certain point, the tree falls if the holes are strategically positioned. So it's a question of just understanding, you know, where we are in this whole thing. What kind of stories we can tell. In my mind, this is the natural strategy, right? And I don't want to be talking too abstract for too long, because then I lose you. So we can go into the concrete and talk about the lighthouse, what it means. The lighthouse is obviously the project that we are doing for the ISSS. We are supposed to be actually writing the paper and presenting, and we are co-authors. And we still haven't written the paper that is called The Winner's Paradox. But my sense is that what energizes me to do these things, the reason why, you know, they're considered, why they exist, and why I'm energized to do them, is because they are holes in the big tree trunk. And following the big tree is actually the winning position. It's, you know, we're small worms. It's not, you know, nothing really matters when you look at the hole. But when you look at the tree falling, that's a big deal. And so, you know, tree falling, tsunami, we're ultimately talking about more or less the same thing. So it's, the idea is that they're small pieces, or rather, maybe significant pieces, but in a big event that we want to happen. And so I don't know if you feel that kind of conversation could be fruitful, or that you could you engage into it, or is it still completely abstract what I'm talking about, and kind of abstract to the point of being uninteresting?
Well, I'm trying to get at the concrete. That's why I ask my questions.
So shall I dive into the concrete then, and hopefully it will illustrate the... And what about Frude? Are you okay, mister? I didn't hear you.
I'm here. I'm listening. That's fine.
Okay, so what we are building up is a kind of a tone, right? It's something that, to begin with, it can feel awkward. It can feel, oh my God, what is this, right? It can upset people. But ultimately, it becomes just like maybe those kids saying the king is completely naked. People take a second look and they see the naked kid and say, okay, I mean, this is just silly, right? Let's deal with some reality here. And so that's basically what I'm expecting, right? So to begin with, there is a kind of a threshold with this lighthouse story and so on. But anyway, let me maybe wrap up the basic pitch with the systems community in a nutshell, and we deal with it. Is it okay? Or would you rather like to lead the conversation? I don't want to lose you, right?
Okay, so you're talking about the effects of a paradigmatic shift, as in a big tree falling over, or, you know, a lot of holes being digged. But what is it that's actually the shift? You know, what is the actual change in perception? What is the change in the way people think, the way systems work, that are those individual holes that are being drilled?
Right. That's what remained after dark, as I see it, right? It's paradigmatic shifts in knowledge work as enabled by information technology, number one. And number two, on a bigger scale, paradigmatic shifts in how all our institutions and what are called various organizations are constructed. In other words, systemic innovation on a large scale, right?
Okay, so I wrote down knowledge work, organizations, construction, and systemic innovation.
It's the structure of institutions and organizations changing using knowledge media as enabler. It's as Doug's vision as I see it, really.
Okay.
And so the concrete example we're dealing with, right?
Which example?
International Society for the System Sciences.
Yeah, ISSS, okay.
So, long story short, the Wiener's paradox paper is pointing to a statement that, or insight that Wiener was offering to the world in 1948, pretty much at the point of inception of the systems community, saying something which is crucial for the very existence of the systems community, for its mission in the world, for its purpose. And that is, guys, shape up. We cannot just simply trust the market, that the market will give us the best systems and the best governing or homeostasis of the systems. We have to use systemic thinking and systemic insights to create those systems consciously. Ergo, we need to study systems. Are you with me so far, or?
Yeah, I mean, now,
50,
60, years later, that appears obvious. But at the time, it probably was not obvious because
it may appear obvious. It may appear as obvious to you, but this is not how most people think. I mean, it's interesting when you do the reading, right? How he framed his pitch. He was saying, "Isn't it obvious?" And then he's quoting von Neumann and Morgenstern and all these people. So to reconfirm that this basic ideology of trusting the market doesn't really, I mean, it's meaningless.
Well,
and
let me say why I think it's obvious and why it's elementary systemic thinking, okay? And that is that if you have capitalism based on a single metric, which is profit, without any other metrics, then that single metric optimization is going to not account for many systems which have nothing to do with profit.
No, but look, I mean, it's obvious to me, it's obvious to you. You don't need to say that it's obvious. My point is that this is not the accepted philosophy out there. In 1980...
That was not my point. The point was not that it's obvious. The point was that it's elementary systemic thinking.
Of course, not totally elementary systemic thinking. But my basic point is that this elementary systemic thinking didn't penetrate into the masses from the community. My basic point number one. My basic point number two is that if you want this to happen, let's say you consider yourselves as a system within a system, right? Then publishing more and more sophisticated articles about, splitting the hair about systems and more about systems and so on, it's not necessarily going to help that cause.
Not at all.
Right.
Get it into much simpler memes that are then understandable by the public.
Exactly. So the point here is that if the system sciences would perceive themselves as would perceive themselves as a system within a system with a certain mission, conceivably the work that they would be doing would be just totally different. Conceivably, right?
Okay, so you're positing that they do not see themselves as a system within a system.
I'm positing that they actually inherited, and this is for obvious reasons. If you wanted anybody to consider you as a serious academic discipline, you had to have some good papers, theorems, and things, and so on and so forth. And that's what they were basically doing. They were trying to establish themselves all along as a bona fide academic discipline, hurting all the time a little bit that they didn't give to the world a good universal theory of systems yet that would kind of answer all the basic questions about systems. It's more like all kinds of insights, right? That's the state of the affairs. At the same time, the systems community deeply feels, if you were there last year, you would have felt it too, that their voice is basically not heard, that people are not here. I mean, wonderful stories, right? Story after story, which is essentially reflecting. I mean, I could go on telling you these stories, right? But the basic point is that the systems community has a message to the world, which is essential. It's survival matter. It's huge. It's enormous. Let me mention another guy, right? To move on from Wiener. Jay Forrester. He was a computer inventor. He was a kind of a little bit like Doug, another genius inventor, right? But the story goes that in 1950s already he felt, okay, the computer revolution is finished. Let's do something that really is exciting. And he discovered computer simulation of systems. His message to the world, which he did with really good, careful studying of some basic systems such as the city, the global economy, and the country economy, and so on, was that decisions made on apparent cause effect in basic policy, we talk about governance or running a company and so on, right? They're meaningless decisions because complex systems have counterintuitive behavior. And he published 3 books and lots of things about this, right? So we're not going into detail, but he was lobbying to tell this to American Congress. Hey guys, system science has to inform basic decision making. This is huge, right? I mean, let's say that sustainability could be that we have been basing our action on simple cause-effect thinking, and the actual causes and the so-called side effects got out of hand. So,
not just out of hand, they're completely ignored.
Right. But they're coming back and grabbing us by the shoulder and saying,
because so they were.
Right, we cannot ignore them indefinitely. But the basic story is that if you are thinking about a place in the world where systemic re-evolution might naturally begin or need to begin, this is it. My point number 3, and my point number 4, it started already when our friend Alexander initiated the restructuring or constructuring of the systems community according to collective intelligence principles in 2012 when he was the president. Initiated in 2012. He was showcasing it in 2013. So the story from the book is that Doug died on July 2nd, 2013. Less than 2 weeks later, Alexander was actually implementing his vision in the ISSS.
Third, right?
Is it third or second?
I thought it was the third.
Okay, I thought it was second, but we can find out.
See, what I'm trying to figure out is it really the problem that ISSS has not had a voice, or is it a problem that the message is too complex and not easy to understand?
Right. That's. Ultimately, what the cause is and so on, we can argue, but that's not necessarily. We're not necessarily trying to find out why. We're trying to design a better example, design a better system.
No, so, I think there is a difference because if they have a message and they're just having trouble getting it out, then you solve that problem. If they don't have a message and because it's too complicated and we have to simplify the message, then that's a different problem.
No, look. I mean, it's not the kind of message that that most people will grasp, because it's a paradigm shift. It's a shift in thinking.
In who's thinking?
In everybody's thinking. In the whole culture. The whole culture is cause-effect based. We learn this in school. It's a big deal, right?
For everybody to accept it, it has to be simple enough for everyone to accept it.
But simple it is. Look, the question is how you think. You see, when you think a little bit systemically, it was simple to Doug. I have it well documented, really, that when he was recapitulating his whole thought process in the beginning of 1951, this is what he's saying, right? He was positively thinking systemically. To him, it's obvious. This is why he was not obvious to people, right? Because he had another brain. And you can say not just systemic thinking, but systemic thinking is a huge part of the paradigm shift that has to happen. This is it.
I don't know how you would have different people think. Are you trying to teach them something? Are you trying to get them to accept a different logic? Are you trying to get them to act differently? I mean, what is it that people need to change in their behavior?
No, that's when the paradigm shifts, everybody sees it. You know, we had church and the Bible for a long time, and then we had science and causality as it is, and now it's going to be something else. So don't worry about that, right? We're not necessarily in the business of changing how people think. It's changing all right. The question is what we do on the tsunami, right? We're kind of surfing on it. You see my point? We're trying to be basically useful actors on the tsunami wave. We want to contribute to its good flow, right? We want to or build on it, or that's it's that kind of story, right?
No, you said you want to change the way people think.
No. I don't want to change. The point is that it's not that I want to change how the people think. I want us to be good, active, proactive, contributing surfers on the tsunami, essentially, or warrens in a tree, right? The question is how do we make this hold? What exactly is the point, right?
Are you trying to make us good exemplars?
Of course, exactly. Yes, not only exemplars, but I want us to be essentially good memes. It's more than exemplars. It's to embody a certain way of thinking. I like to call it free walking elephants, because that's what it is. If you think about free range chicken, this is free range elephants. It's a much bigger thing, right? Much more visible, much more spectacular.
So what have we done that deserves people taking a look at us and saying, "Wow, these guys are doing it right"?
That's what we're doing, right? We've been doing this all along. It's just to make us present in that space in a certain way, and then to create that kind of visibility, right? But we have to become, right? We have to become the free walking elephants, essentially, and that's the big deal. That's the biggest deal.
Right. That's a good question, because I'm not sure we are good elephants right now.
No, but let's become, right. That's we're one step away from it. Becoming is by doing it. We don't just become. Nothing is like that.
Right, but we can't just say we want to be. We have to actually say what is the new behavior that we will actively engage in that is the difference that we want people to see.
That's quite precisely the point, right? That's exactly the point.
Okay, so what proposals have you seen for that new behavior? I have one. But what other behavior have we seen?
No, let's focus on the lighthouse and the IEEE situation, because let's not generalize, because it will take us off the focus. So we are looking at the kind of a paradigmatic, it's like Shakespeare, right? Some big human drama is displayed in the concrete, basically. So when you immerse yourself in the story, you see the big drama while being immersed in the story. So let's immerse ourselves into the IEEE story and really see what is going on, right? See that the community is number one, really largely operating. Of course, not only, but largely operating as a traditional academic community, and and that even there is some resistance, you can say, to bringing in the knowledge media people, as you heard from Alexander, right? Bringing in the knowledge media people, and so that we can, recreate both the system of system sciences and recreate all other systems, because we want systemic insights to be embedded in technology, which is what we call systemic innovation, or one part of it. Was this too long sentence, or are we okie-dokie? And so the behavior that we want to be a part of is doing the obvious, right? Doing the obvious means being free-range elephants. You're more American than I am, much more. How shall we say this? Free-range elephants, free-walking elephants. What's the elephants that are not tied, don't have their leg tied to a little branch? That kind of see the trick, and they just go off and walk. And everybody looks at them and say, "Wow, these guys are walking." Yes, we are walking. That's the thing, right? That's basically what has to happen.
Free range is fine. I think that's a good term to use. I'm not sure what you imply by elephant, but I'm not sure that's relevant.
You know that parable of training the elephants by tying, you know that story?
No.
Okay, so the story is that they trained elephants in India to stay put. They would tie, when the elephant is a tiny little elephant, they would tie his...
Okay, I remember the story now, yes.
Right. And so the point is that the elephant stays put when he's, even though he can take out the whole tree, right, with the swing of his leg, he stays there tied to a small branch or a small something because in his mind it is written that he cannot. Mm-hmm. So what is written in our mind at this point is that the systems are reality. We cannot change them, right? So we have to basically, even if you're a system scientist, if you're within the academic system, what you have to do is, academic work as usual, publishing papers and organizing conferences and things, and that's it, right? And so what we want to demonstrate, what we want to bring in the ISSS community is a completely different frame of mind, completely different activity.
Okay, but we have between now and July. So between now and July, what are we developing that will be introduced and has proven differences in results and achievement? What can we show them that is actually proven and should be adopted as the new framework for behavior and thinking?
Well, let's not go back to the market, right? Proven results can mean also that something is just logically coherent and, like object orientation when it just appeared. Okay, so this is...
But that's
theory. Let's check it out.
Right, that's theory.
Sorry?
That's theory.
Not necessarily. No, I mean, the point of the story is that we manifest different behavior in practice. In that way,
behavior then is going to have some results. There's going to be some impact on the world, impact on us, impact on our community, impact on the work we're doing. Right?
Of course, ultimately the world changes, but if the world hasn't changed yet because we have been working on this for 2 months, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It just means that it may take a little bit longer time for the world to change. But what we are creating in the meantime is a piece in the puzzle which is hugely significant, right? And the piece in the puzzle which is hugely significant is manifesting different way of working within the systems community. Okay,
so what is that different way of working?
It is that we are creating a system for the systems community which is just totally different, totally differently thought through than the conventional academic publishing. It's essentially the collective mind or Kodiak idea in the systems community, right?
So it's Kodiak for ISSS.
Voilà.
Okay.
Wrapped up in some good stories, right? All that I have been telling you so far is the wrapping. It's
right. So that's a theory. That's a proposal. We clearly don't have it yet, right?
No, we are going to have it by July. If we just do a little bit of work, and we have to, right? We're not going to come there empty-handed. We need a prototype. So we need to come there with a prototype.
We have Kodiak by July 26th.
Easily, it's a prototype of a Kodiak. That doesn't take more than a couple of weeks to create a prototype. You know, it's a simple prototype. We can use the debate graph and things. And I have been already working on these prototypes for enough time to have the basic story, right? It's just to fine tune the details, but the prototype is essentially us. So the moment we begin working in a certain way, that moment the prototype exists. Bingo, right? And this is why this is the real reason for this conversation, or the technical reason for this conversation.
Okay, so on July 26th, you're going to address a group of SETSIG participants. What are you going to tell them to do differently? Are you going to ask them to jump onto debate graph, or what are you going to tell them? Yes,
that's part of the story. So we're going to have a presentation of the lighthouse in whatever is the allocated time, and the presentation is very short. It's 10 minutes, and then the rest of it is basically co-creation. But we'll do a session of this, and if they accept this, if they accept this workshop proposal that we sent them, then we have this on the workshop also. It's one of the prototypes on the workshop.
Okay, I remember either last year or the previous year, you came back and said that there were some people working on some tools. There was something called SEAL, there was Catherine Ananda, there was George Poor, there were Aki Bosch, a few others. So there will be more than one proposal, right? Even within Amigos, there's more than one.
No. This is history. We're talking about two things. Whatever Catherine Ananda was doing, it's not really operational, or she stepped in, did something, and we don't need to talk about that. We can if you want, but it's not hugely relevant. The Think to Impact platform is evolving, but it's for a specific method, so it's a completely different story. The Think to Impact is Aki Bosch's mindchild.
Huh. But the debate graph was also created for a different set of use cases as well.
Of course, we're going to use debate graph probably in the first instance, but we are going to build on top of debate graph. The basic idea is that debate graph becomes a kind of a medium tool. We're not creating one at this point. And then we are creating basically tools and practices on top of debate graph that lead to filtering of an insight and a certain type of conversation, which I have a little bit vaguely in mind, but it's coming. That can be media attractive, that can really move things, right? That can be, because in the first instance, the lighthouse is focusing on a single point. And that's this, can we completely trust market or spontaneous evolution and things to essentially evolve our systems, and this is a point in the so-called evolutionary system science or general evolution theory, or evolutionary system design. These are Alexander's buzzwords, which we need to familiarize ourselves with, because this is a significant part of the tsunami here, of the water we're swimming in.
Is it systemic to say that, we have a theory, we have a single tool, let's just use the single tool, even though the results of that tool and the practice is not yet shown to be optimal?
It is not systemic, and therefore, the people I'm speaking with right now, they're what is called a transdiscipline, okay? They're people who studied DAG properly, surely unlike Catherine Ananda and who are ready to encapsulate the prototype, see it in action, study it a little bit, and say, okay, but look, number one, I think this can be improved in this and that way, right? Number two, if we create technology X, that's really what we need. Debate graph is not the solution. what we're talking about then is number one, human system, tool system co-evolution. And no, it's precisely that, right? So your objection was, are we creating a kind of a rigid system, a kind of a straitjacket? No, we are creating an evolving system. But this means doing it right, finally.
But I'm saying, could we not have multiple attempts? Say, for example, Alf would think that his system is a good one to start from. Frode might think that his is a good system to start from. You know, debate graph might be a fine system to start from. Mindmeister or the brain might be a good system to start from.
Right, that's totally right, right? But we don't really have resources. I mean, the best thing we can hope for is if we can come up with one prototype and basically showcase the very approach, because that's significant, right? That's the elephant walking. Well, I'm not saying you're wrong, right? All these can be actually, and we should be probably built on top, right? The story continues, and it does continue for sure. But as the first act, what we can bring to this particular ISSS in 2 months, that's basically it. We bring a showcase.
Okay.
So, could you, just to help clarify this bit, could you help explain what functionality the showcase should have? You know, with the struggle we're having with Time Browser, we're actually writing a little kind of a script of what to say on stage. Do you have something similar? Because what we're doing with that is taking that script and saying we need to build the features to make that happen. In fact, I'll email it to both of you guys now. It's really short.
Right.
That's great. The script has evolved from let's really bring the pieces of relevant insight from any kind of discipline that might illuminate this Wiener's basic claim. And that means both pro and con, right? So we're essentially debating Wiener. Is this correct or not, right? Was Wiener right or was Ronald Reagan right, or whoever? So who is really right about this? And so what points of evidence we are going to bring into the picture that are relevant, right? So that's game one, which I have moved a little bit.
But Dino, just to really clarify, just because we really want to be supportive, because we love what you're doing. I just put a document in Skype. It's really short. Do you mind just looking at it? Because in there's a heading called interactions. I'm wondering if you could write a list that's similar to that. It would be a lot easier for us to co-develop what you're talking about.
No, of course. We're still talking, right? I'm fully aware that. To begin with, what I'm describing is not what I have in mind, and it's just basic debate graph, right? This is how debate graph operates. You have an issue and people debate.
Okay, but Dino, my dearest beloved friend, I've listened to you a lot, and it's very important what you're doing. If we just use debate graph, that's fine. But then you have to do exactly the same thing. You have to write, in debate graph, we need to be able to do this and this and this. Right, please open the document, because it really won't take you many seconds.
My dear friend, this is exactly the next step. This is what we're talking about, right? That's what I want us to do. That's the same. Allow me to do this, but before we get in there, we're descending from the mountaintop into the actual technical detail.
No, we're not. My dearest beloved friend, we're not. Please have a look at it. But before you say that, please, love and kisses, please have a look. This is not about going into technical details.
Under interactions, there's some examples. Show full transcript, search based on time, show specific person's words, hear original audio, change the VSpec, cite the document. So in other words, this is what we would do if we were demonstrating Time Browser. So the question, as I hear Frode saying, is now if we're actually demonstrating what you would do with debate graph representing a lighthouse project, you're in front of ISSS, you've got 10 minutes. What do you show? What do you do? What does the tool do? What do you say? What do the people then see? And then what do they think?
No, this is perfectly cool. I love the challenge, and this is exactly what I would like to propose. So the moment now is us becoming interested enough to essentially take up the challenge, right? But what I want us to do is not take it up from the point, oh, here comes another kind of piece of something from Dino. Let's, but to take it from the point of view of digging holes in the big tree, right? Seeing that this is it's one of the key holes, key holes for many people.
We agree.
It's a precious exemplar, right?
There's something missing from this document that I think you would like to hear, and that is very much Dino level thinking. And that is, when working on getting down this short list for Time Browser, the first question I had, and this comes from walking with Emily and talking just random people who are not in our industry, you know, and saying, okay, we expect for Time Browser to have this volume of transcribed meeting stuff. What are we going to do with it? What's the most important thing we can possibly use it for? So we really came to two things: reading it nicely and citations. Because you will be reading some of it, but very, very importantly, you will be able to be somewhere and then cite back to what Sam said at 2 o'clock in that meeting. So I'm wondering, for what you're talking about now, if you could have not feature to have on a box on a product to sell, no, but the kind of things that you wanted to be enabling in our communication.
Yeah, of course. We are getting there. That's exactly that was my point, right? So the kind of thing that we want to enable in our communication is that single world-changing insights are enabled to penetrate out of academic disciplines into the collective mind. So this is collective mind basic function, right? Why should some parts of the collective mind know all about systems and essentially talk to each other, and the rest of people are left in the dark because they don't know the language, and frankly, they don't even know that they should care. So the lighthouse is basically, if you think about the ISSS, or if you think the system as a continent, right, where a good transformation of how we think and how we do things can happen. The lighthouse is basically attracting the stray ships to the safety of its harbor. It's something that is visible from far away, and gives the right message, right? If you want X, come here. This is, I hope this is now, you know, that part is clear. And what we have hanging in the air, if you allow me to land it right away, I hope I'm not going too fast, is that I was thinking that we don't just do the simple debate graph thing already in this first instance, but that we do something a little bit more interesting, that we divide the roles. I'm talking to you now as the transdiscipline around this prototype, both constructing it and analyzing what, you know, how, later analyzing how it works in practice and ready to update it and so on. So we are shaping up transdiscipline with our own bodies.
So the key thing is to be able to share the insights within a collective mind, so to speak, right? To make a bigger collective mind, right?
Right, or weave the systems community into the bigger collective mind. Essentially, we're talking about the collective mind re-evolution, right? And we're sitting there in the systems community, and together with them, we are evolving, right? We are all evolving. We are evolving the collective mind.
So today, how that happens is, let's call it, let's say, technical journalism, right? Either Scientific American or the equivalent, you know, for ISSS, some sort of a reporting product that's geared towards the masses, but is actually mining the results of the research community, would take that very esoteric or meta level insight and use small words appropriate for sixth graders, right? And translate it for regular people.
Kind of like that. You know, this can grow indefinitely in the direction of good communication design and so on and so forth. You know, an exemplar of this we tried to create, or we actually hasn't created, with Tesla and the Nature of Creativity project, where we are extracting the insights from a single paper or a single author. Now, we're talking about portfolio design, right? That's a piece in the portfolio. It's evolving further. We have stories to tell. But this is another kind of thing, right? Where we have a whole academic community. And we are building a communication infrastructure for any single insight to first of all be aggregated by this community and then communicated to the rest of the world. And this is why in our basic we have these three stages, right? The first stage is something like debate graph. Let's not worry about the details for the moment. The second stage is communication design. In Tesla and the Nature of Creativity, communication design was stage one, right? So you're turning the article into a multimedia object and essentially making it possible for anybody to understand what's in there. That was step one, right? And here it's the other way around. It's step one is something like debate graph. That was step three there. Step two is communication design, because whatever is there and then step three is placing this strategically into public sphere, into public awareness.
Okay, so let me ask you another Gedanken experiment. Let's suppose that this system works flawlessly and works beautifully, okay? And the system's community is generating insights every day that are just world-changing, okay? So every day there's an insight coming through, and every day there's a new multimedia 5-minute, 2-minute little segment that needs to be broadcast to 8 billion people on the planet. How do the 8 billion people on the planet know that Wednesday's result is more interesting than Tuesday's result, or all of them should be given prominent status? And not only ISSS, but suppose now we have this working well for ACM, for IEEE, for AAAS, for, you know, New England Journal of Medicine, for Wall Street Journal, for Chicago Economic Review, blah, blah, blah. You know, now we've got thousands of these things very effectively using this tool, and now people are still getting spammed. And now the ISSS message is still one of 2,000 that I get in my inbox.
Okay, I have several answers, but the obvious first one is that we're not creating 1,000 insights from the ISSS. We're creating a single one for the time being. That's the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is about a single insight. And so it's a complete redistribution of the power. Instead of everybody creating their own paper and publishing the paper and going home to publish another one, we basically, we're not engaging necessarily everybody in the systems community. The point is something else, right? It's to engage, it's to have a tool by which systemic insights can be assembled from whatever is known out there. So Annette, who is the muse of the project, she's an evolutionary biologist to begin with. So she has evolutionary biology community and their basic results. We don't need to poll everybody's opinion. I mean, this community knows basic things. It's like everybody in systems community knows that systems are important. So we don't need to, you don't need to poll all the community to figure out basic things. Anybody will do almost, right? We're talking about evolving the collective mind. And then we pull essential points from this community, that community, and this. And so this suddenly becomes a little piece of collective mind which aggregates basic insights about a basic issue from different communities and places them strategically into the public sphere. Now, what is this, right? That's basically a kind of more concrete answer to your question. We had a little bit of this in Tesla and the Nature of Creativity. You can basically imagine that communities, let's say, you know, academic communities and things, they have their post boxes. So you can place something into their post box if it's relevant for them, let's say, right? People can be subscribed. So you can imagine that the world knowledge is a big domain map. And when something major happens from some kind of community and it's placed out there, then somehow everybody sees it because, you know, it's shown in big light. In other words, we are not just putting the things out into the market of things and ideas, hoping somebody will see them, but there is an organization on that market which is logical and functional.
Dino, we need to start talking about features at some point, even basic ones. So, no, hang on. I'm not trying to go all technical. I just mean, because we're really close to being out of time, something, because you're saying one insight, and that is the insight you've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
If we maybe want to use another insight for a while, something that is really obvious as kind of a, because there is a design thing of do your rough design with the throwaway products so you don't overwork it. So let's say maybe we do, the inside is you should drink 8 glasses of water a day, something really inane. But then we can really work on the way to communicate this.
Right, but this is, I think this is a great insight, which is basically like that, because to everybody in the systems community, it's totally obvious. This is much more obvious than 8 glasses of water a day. The fact that systems should inform the evolution of, or systemic thinking should inform the evolution of systems out there is a very basic fact. But let me, before we because I have this other thing in mind, which is a little bit, answering your question through the how does this work and what is really the thing. I'm thinking, and this is maybe we can end with talking about this for a moment. I'm thinking that instead of just doing this kind of basic thing, let's come up with an insight, that we divide the roles somehow. And so I was thinking that I can. I'm thinking aloud now, so don't throw any rotten tomatoes into my face, please. That we divide the roles so that let's say Annette is some kind of this point on a scale. She's keeping balanced and essentially aggregating things. That I take another role. That I take the role of some kind of devil's or I don't know whose advocate, right? And I'm my job is to challenge the system and make the things media attractive and so on, right? And so what I'm going to say, not necessarily claim, right, but to challenge the system. I'm going to say that that the way evolution itself is understood, that it's a kind of a joke, that it's a piece of political propaganda. It's essentially a kind of a political dogma rather than a scientific result at all. And then I'm going to argue for that, right? And this is going to shock some people possibly because they're going to say, hey, come on, I mean, are you crazy? And then possibly an interesting conversation can develop. And so instead of having some kind of boring academic conversation, we could have it hugely energized by pitching these sort of things. And I was going to ask you, because now we are designing by committee, right? Would you gentlemen allow me to do this? Would you be happy if I do it that way? And you don't have to answer yes or no. We can discuss, right? But that's what
I'm not sure I know what the question is. What way?
We want roles too, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely roles. My God, but you're exactly having one of the roles now. We can all have several. We are a small gang and the project is quite big. But the role that you have at this point is we are co-designing the system. You are the transdiscipline, you see what's going on. And so I'm coming to you with this idea. So why don't we, instead of making this kind of traditional boring news and things, why don't we energize the whole discussion process by creating a controversy, essentially?
Okay.
I believe I can do a fairly good job with it. Sam, is this being clear or is it still obscure what kind of controversy and what kind of thing we're talking about?
I'm still lost.
Tell me about the controversy.
Look, let's say that if you stop a person in the street and ask, okay, so what did Darwin really create and how is this relevant for modernity? Then the person will say, of course, I mean, I learned this in third grade at school. The story is essentially that he explained how life on the planet happened at all, right? He did give us a scientific explanation, which doesn't need any kind of mumbo jumbo, no God necessary. It's just plain evolution by random mutations and survival of the fittest. And then the economy guys said, well, wonderful, right? Isn't this exactly what we have in the economy? Random mutations, a little bit of human creativity, of course, but that doesn't hurt, and the survival of the fittest. And if Mother Nature operates in that way and has created us and our intelligences and our bodies and all the miracles you see in the world, How can we ever do better than that in economy? Just tell us. And basically everything, including non-sustainability, followed from there, right? And so instead of challenging this in some kind of academic, mild way, I would like to challenge it in a kind of a radical way, right? By saying that this is just some kind of political nonsense that nobody has essentially cooked up, maybe deliberately, but nonetheless, it did happen, and it's a form of brainwashing. So let's really poke into it, right? Let's see that it holds water when we examine it. I will essentially say that this is a dogma of today. I can say that because I'm in a dialogical system. I'm not claiming that this is the truth. I want to challenge the system. Mm-hmm. Give some people some interesting things to do, and then see what develops, right? But the point is that that then the conversation will really be energized. It will be, not this kind of, okay, here's this homework to do. People will get upset. People will, and possibly the media people will also be interested.
I'll give you an insight into why I'm confused, okay? And that if we're thinking systemically, then we have to think in terms of a number of insights, not a single one. If you're thinking about just getting a single insight, a single paradigmatic shift made, then you're thinking about some very localized phenomena, very localized meme that you want to spread with, some number of producers, journalists, publications, media channels, analysts, politicians, academics, etc. So I'm trying to figure out which world we're talking about. Are we talking about how we do systemic innovation in the strategic sense, or are we talking about a single paradigmatic shift for that one insight that you've got in mind? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right, but it's both. With me, it's always both. I know you know your old friend how I operate, right? I always do a very concrete thing that illustrates the very big thing. And so the very concrete thing is essentially, I'm going to challenge the prevailing idea of evolution as essentially a political dogma.
So that is already happening, isn't it?
Of course. People do it, but they don't have a collective mind. So you can, in the crazy world out there, you can say anything, and then some people will be against, some people will be pro. But the collective mind has no way of assembling these things in order to come up with some kind of reasonable conclusion.
Okay.
So Bedrock has done.
Let's give a voice because he's been waiting for quite a while.
Sorry, yes.
Turn on video so I can wave, right?
Yes.
So here's the thing. Going back to the phrase evolution of the fittest, I know you guys understand, I'm only contextualizing, I'm not preaching. That doesn't mean evolution of the strongest. It means those who fit the system survive. That's all it means, right?
Those who adapt.
Evolution does not like adaptation.
The original word as I heard it was adaptation.
No, because the thing is, if things are fine, if we're on a plateau where everything works, any minor change will be considered degenerative, right? It is only if the environment changes that any adaptation can possibly become useful, right? So I think that Dino is very much focusing on Doug's directed co-evolution notion, right? That we should have a say where we want to go. And also, as a final thought on this, there is this sentence, everything is connected, which is bullshit, which is horrendously awful. It's like information wants to be free. However, I think we can usefully say that systems are connected with other systems. The reason I think this is a really important part of that is when you talk about the different scales, Sam, and also if you talk to a student, let's say, about behavior in a soccer match where you get thug behavior, right? The normal question is that right, that student should, that person who was in that should get more of a prison sentence, or was there an excuse because of the context of what was going on? That's like one of the key questions of our age, right? Where do you put responsibility? Personally, no matter what happens, or in the environment where you live, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So both of them are systems. You have an internal system, external system, connected systems. So I think that the kind of discussion you guys had now, if we just really further the discussion of how systems can connect and why, we need to have the why, because the why is the morality of it.
You see, that's the thing. That's the thing. This is you know now happily Fruda is pulling me back to the mountaintop and to the tsunami and so on, because this is what we're dealing with, right? We are through a kind of a keyhole. We are looking at really big issues. Now these are really big issues, right? As you just said. And so that's where it becomes exciting, right? And so now I just want us to basically, for motivation purposes, right, to see what is going on. We're creating a portfolio of these things. At a certain point, we can show them and we can say, look, collective mind re-evolution, human system, tool system, co-evolution, here it is. It's happening, right? And then it's a question of scaling, and that question we leave to the God Almighty and to people becoming reasonable.
Thank you. I agree. Two related thoughts. One of them is I've had discussions lately about obviously author and things like that. Author is designed for people who want to invest time in their tools. And as you both know and agree, Doug said, make powerful tools. Ease of use comes later, right? And my realization this week has been a bit of a holy shit moment. Politics is a powerful tool, right? And you have Trump versus Hillary in America. Hillary is kind of establishment. She does stand for things. She does good or bad. But unfortunately, she is a politician. Trump is an anti-politician. We have a similar thing here with Brexit. Should the UK leave the EU? Insane, huh?
So is Bernie.
Yeah, he's... No, he's not. That's another discussion. I'm not pro or against. Let's not waste our time there. I'm just saying that the political process in Europe, as in the European Union, is complicated. You know, 3 different houses, lots of different things. The problem is people don't want to be engaged with it. Politics is a powerful tool, right? So when you're talking about the levels you're talking about now, Dino, we have to find a way to communicate something like that without being elitist.
Whatever elitist means. No, look, it's just developing the right kind of voice, and you hear my voice. I think it's becoming more and more humble and kind of down to earth, and I hope, right? I'm working on it seriously. You know, practicing unconditional love and meditation and all that stuff, so that we don't come out as arrogant is hugely important, right? But at the same time, as free-range elephants, we have to essentially walk our talk. And that's what really matters, right? So people see us walking, and that's it.
Yeah. And now I have to go walk and talk somewhere else, I'm afraid. But we're getting a bit closer. And just as a final thought from my side, that is, when I get frustrated with this, you know, in America you have the right and the left. We have it here in a different way. But sorry, but who gives a fuck, right? It is a giving up of responsibility. We should have a question. You know, we should have a model of a human being here. This is our children. How do we want them to be? Right? And then we design everything around that to design our children. End of story. Right? And designing a child is designing systems, right? Do we want them to be healthy? Do we want them to be racist or not? What are the criteria? What do we want? How do we change our society to make that happen?
My dear friend, this is we have come to now to a point which I would like to also highlight a little bit, and that's what I'm calling it's one of those formulas, federating Alexander. Right? Alexander has a paper with his father where he's talking about precisely that, right? About general evolution theory as being essentially the new ethics, in the sense that from it we can learn how to be and behave. It's not at this stage. It's a complex idea, right? And if you read the paper, you possibly won't be much wiser because it's quite general. But there is a very, very basic fine point in it.
You're saying that evolutionary theory becomes the new ethics.
I'm paraphrasing in a very, very rough way. So but just see what I'm saying, right? The point is that
I'm saying there's nothing wrong with the video, because I kind of expect Sam's head to be going like this right now. It must be frozen. Yes. Okay, go on.
No, the basic point is that you know, it's the whole idea of conscious evolution. But what this means is that from the system study of evolution, you essentially learn how you need to be in order for the bigger system to thrive. And this is what he's about, right? And federating Alexander would mean that we are now implementing the kind of system that can do this. Not just parroting what he said, right? But really building the system, which is, needless to say, an essential part of the collective mind. So my point is that we are right on spot, right? We're right there where you know all the juicy material is, essentially. We just have to roll up our sleeves and basically do it, right? And by doing it, we become. That's my elephant point.
I have to run, but just it's so important what you're saying, all of it. And as you've heard me say before, if I had a choice, I would not be spending my money and time on technology. I would actually try to teach everyone the right tone of voice, which is exactly what you referred to, you know. So I think to simplify, if we focus on two things, this is just a suggestion, how we want the systems to be, as in what kind of people do we want to produce in the world, is one. And the second one is, how do we smooth the interactions between the systems? That's 90% of what we're trying to do, right?
Right. Well, it depends on what you mean by 90%. For me, 90% at this stage is simply being, right? Manifesting that kind of behavior is hugely important.
Yes, it is. But you know, in software development, as I learned again and again, first you do 90% of the work, then you do the other 90% of the work. It's not funny, it's killing me.
And then you decide whether or not to ship the product.
Yes. Right.
Or whether you have something that's shippable.
I have to go, but what I suggest we do is we try to make some of these calls a bit longer because it seems they get interesting at 1 hour point.
Just a note, tomorrow is a Friday where I am available. It's every other Friday. I am quite confused by today's call. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. Maybe I got too much sleep, but I am just all kinds of questions buzzing in my mind. I haven't even voiced many of them yet. So if there's an opportunity to do this again tomorrow, I'm here.
Are you here, Dino?
Okay, I am here. The trouble is that tomorrow I have Frederick for the whole day. Right. And we're working on the interaction design for Polyscopy, which is you know, another showcase, another big deal. And so I can possibly invite Frederick to be here with me, or maybe Frederick can do something, and we can all congregate at 3
Either way, invite him here or let him take a break. You know, both are
right.
Fine.
Okay, super cool. So let's plan on being here 3 o'clock. But if Frederick and I are finishing up something and it's usually important and so on, then let's not stay for very long. If that's okay.
Yeah, let's be flexible. We look forward to tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks for today. Bye, guys.
Ciao.